and thanks everyone for joining us today. Today we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about mass notification. To start that discussion, just wanted to give you a little background on Valcom. We are a privately held company out of Virginia, and we have been in the communications business for over 40 years now, and really focusing on presenting communications means that can get effective communications out to the people under your care in seconds. And we have kind of a unique company in that we are a U.S. electronics manufacturer. All of our products are designed, engineered, and supported out of our factory in Virginia, which is kind of unique nowadays. So we are Buy American compliant, and for that reason, we do a significant amount of business throughout North America, but particularly in the United States and elsewhere. We have markets that really span all different verticals: K through 12 schools, higher education, healthcare, commercial industrial facilities, transportation, and government facilities. The presentation we're going to do today is kind of focused around K through 12 schools, but I think that you'll see that the applications that we have do span all of these verticals. We have the same systems that we're going to talk about installed at college campuses and in large healthcare facilities, and all the different verticals that are shown. Matter of fact, we have this same system installed at Herman Memorial right there in Houston, as well as many school districts and industrial customers, even some oil and gas customers in your area. So to get started, I just want to talk a little bit about what it is that Valcom does very briefly. We are kind of known as the industry standard for intercom and paging. So you will find our devices in almost any facility you go into. You're going to find some Valcom in there. But, if you go into a Walmart, you're going to hear Valcom speakers or a Lowe's or a Home Depot. Especially if you go into any K through 12 schools, we're very strong in that K through 12 market. So overhead paging is broadcasting audio over speakers and horns to large areas of a facility. Intercom is a bidirectional call where you want to be able to call into an area and then have someone respond to you to be able to give you that live, what we call hands-free communications, to talk back to the person on the phone. We also have a wide variety of visual notification devices, such as screen pops on computers, scrolling LED displays, flashers, strobes, those sort of things. And mobile alerting devices. We have Apple and Android applications that can be loaded on your smartphones to push notifications even out to people who maybe aren't on a facility. We also have emergency help points, such as you would find in parking garages or parking lots or large even walking trails, where we have points where you can go and get help whenever needed through our emergency help points. Those emergency help points are also audio transmission points. So we have built-in speakers and horns in those that allow you to be able to broadcast audio in kind of remote areas. And then one of the most important things we do is that we integrate in with other systems. So we've got the ability to integrate in with any telephone system. We've got the ability to integrate with access control systems, with IP camera systems, with fire panels, to be able to either enhance the communications of those devices or to simply streamline your emergency action plans, to be able to tie things together and provide you information as rapidly as possible through some devices that you may already have around your facility. And really, we tie all those things together, paging, intercom, visual notifications, mobile alerting, help points, and systems integration. And that is what we call mass notification, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to spend the rest of our time here today discussing mass notification. And mass notification is broken down into 4 steps. Those 4 steps are preparation, delivery, reach, and time. And we like to talk to our customers about each of these steps whenever we're deploying a system. Since we do deal with a wide variety of customers in different verticals across the United States and around the world even, we have a lot of experience in deploying mass notifications, and we can bring some best practices from other similar installations and perhaps enhance your emergency communications. And by sitting down and talking about these 4 steps, we find that it really does allow you to start thinking about things that maybe you previously didn't even consider for your emergency communications plans. So we're going to take a look at each of these steps very quickly. The first step is preparation. And preparation involves multiple things. Primarily, we start with your emergency action plans. So we look at, okay, how are you going to handle different emergency situations? If you have a severe weather event, how is that handled? If you have an active shooter event, if you have an evacuation event, number one, the initiation of those events is extremely important. So how do we first find out that there is an event going on? And a lot of times in dealing with our customers, this first step takes a lot of time. You know, we can waste a lot of time just getting the information that something is occurring. So being able to speed the way that you receive that information, being able to push that information to you so that if there is a severe weather event, or if there is an active shooter, or if there is even day-to-day kind of communications, being able to push that information to people and provide them that information, provide it to the people that need that information to be able to make decisions is very important. So we like to look at the different initiation points, whether they be internal sources, security personnel. If you have security personnel roaming around, what communication devices do they have that they can utilize to notify administration that there's an issue? Do they have two-way radios? Do they have cell phones? Do they have emergency help points that they can get to very rapidly in an emergency situation? So we like to go through those internal sources and look at ways that we can streamline that. How can we make that process as efficient as possible? Then we look at the external sources like the National Weather Service, FEMA, Homeland Security. Those sources are government sources that are pushing information out on the internet. But a lot of times we have to be, listening to weather radio or watching TV to get that severe weather event information. So it's a very manual process and requires that certain people be in front of devices to get that information. So again, there are ways that we can streamline that information and push the information to you in an emergency. So as quickly as possible that there is something going on. And then you can make the decision, okay, we need to activate our emergency action plan for whatever the event is. And then we look at those emergency action plans, and we look at the steps that are taken. And again, these tend to be very manual processes. A lot of times they are involving multiple disparate technologies. So maybe I have, as part of my emergency action plan, we go over to the paging system and we do a live audio broadcast. We read a paragraph off of our emergency action plan to the overhead speakers. Maybe we go over to another system and we send out an email blast. Maybe we could go to a third system and send text messages out. All these different systems and different ways of inputting information, they lead to more time. It takes more time. Now I've got to go and we have to send multiple people to these different devices, or someone has to go and touch each of those different platforms. And it also induces the potential for incorrect information to be entered. Maybe the information is not exactly broadcast in the way that it was intended when that emergency action plan was activated. So being able to take those emergency action plans, number one, streamline, speed the way that we get information from the field so that we know that there's an issue. Once we know there's an issue, looking at the emergency action plan, seeing what steps in that emergency action plan we can automate to be able to speed the delivery of information to the people under our care is extremely important, because this is all time in an emergency situation is extremely important to those that are in harm's way. The more we can shorten these times, the more we can shorten the time that it takes to find out that there's something occurring, the faster we can then spin around and deliver information to the people in harm's way, the more time they have to really save themselves, which is typically what's occurring in an emergency situation. We're giving them the information that something is occurring. We're giving them information about what they need to do, and then those people are carrying out that action. So the preparation step is extremely important. We spend a lot of time with our customers on this step to try to really condense that time down, get this step as short as possible. And then we talk about delivery. Delivery is, are all of your alerting tools working together? So we've listed some here on the side of the screen. Overhead paging, obviously, that's almost every emergency action plan has that. If a severe weather event occurs, go to the paging microphone or pick up the phone and dial this code and speak this message out over the speakers. Emergency help points, like those help points that are out in parking garages or parking areas, visual alerting devices, things that you may already have installed in your facility that you can take that existing investment and utilize it in an emergency situation. Do you have large displays around your facility that are maybe showing just general bulletin board type information? But in an emergency, can we seize control of that system and provide emergency information on those same screens? Do you have IP phones deployed in your facility? If so, we may be able to utilize those IP phones and broadcast audio through the speaker phones of those devices, or put visual messages on the LCD displays of those devices. Screen pops on computers. If you have computers in the facility, we may be able to utilize those and pop up an emergency message on that screen. So if you have someone who's sitting in their office with the door closed and they have headphones on listening to music and they can't hear that there's this audible page going on, we can pop that information up on the screen that they're working on, force them to acknowledge that before they move on to their work. So forcing information to people. Mobile alerting, being able to push notifications out to Apple and Android smartphones to be able to get that person wherever they are, get them the information that we need to present to them. Two-way radios, we can integrate with two-way radio systems. So if you already have a two-way radio system, we could use that system and be able to broadcast audio over those two-way radios. Maybe the same audio that's coming over the overhead speakers, so that if someone is out and they're in a remote area of the facility, we could hit their two-way radio and get them that same audible information. And then email, obviously being able to send out emails about information and be able to utilize that service is important. But really this delivery screen is just to get you thinking about systems that you may already have in place. If you have an existing paging system, We don't say, hey, rip out that paging system and put in a Valcom paging system. What we can do is we can integrate in with that existing system. We can seize control of that existing system in an emergency, take it over, and broadcast through it in that emergency. If you have existing signs or displays, all these different things that IP phones, things that you may have already invested in that you're using on a daily basis for day-to-day communications, we may be able to integrate those into a true system that works together and allows you to deliver emergency or day-to-day information in a more effective way. So that's the delivery section. We like to talk to our customers about this, and a lot of times it really brings up some eye-opening facts about things that are just sitting there that that we can utilize. The next step is we like to talk about reach, and reach is if you do need to deliver an emergency announcement, are we reaching everyone under your care? Are we reaching everyone inside of your facility? So while you may have an overhead paging system, does that overhead paging system cover the entire facility? You know, going back to that, those office doors that may be shut. If those office doors are shut, are we getting that emergency announcement to the people inside of that office? Those are the kind of things that we like to survey, and that's the type of thing that DataVox does. They'll come in and they'll look at your facility and make sure that you've got a viable solution. And it may be that the solution is perfect and it covers the entire facility, or it may be that we can just supplement it and add a few audible devices to cover the area inside the building. You may have some high noise environments in that building where we need to add visual indicators. If there's a machine running, we can't hear the overhead paging, so we can add a strobe light or add a message board display that scrolls the text of the emergency right on that display. But just surveying, looking at the property and saying, okay, are we actually covered inside? Do we have the ability to present audible information to everyone that can hear it? Can we present them with visual information also in case they can't hear that audible announcement? Do we have hearing impaired people under our care that we need to be able to provide visual information to? And if so, where are they located? Where do we need to push information to them? How do we get that information to them if they're inside the building? So that survey is very important to look at the existing infrastructure you have and how wide that coverage is. Is it actually complete? We also look at the outside areas of the building. If you have multiple buildings, if people are walking between buildings, can we get information to them? Can we let them know that there's a severe weather event or that there's an active shooter event going on so that the people outside the buildings can react? And then we also look at remote areas, parking lots, walking trails, remote sports fields, these kind of things where if you have a soccer practice going on in an athletic field, are we able to notify them that there's an event going on? You know, are we able to reach people no matter where they are on that campus, on those grounds? Can we get information to the people that are under our care? And also the people that maybe aren't on that campus. They aren't physically on that campus's constraints, but maybe they're at home getting ready to go to that site, or maybe they're driving there right now. But if there's an emergency situation, we don't want to add people to the problem. We don't want to add additional bodies to the situation that's going on. We want to keep those roadways clear for emergency responders to be able to react to the situation. So being able to push information out to people beyond the physical constraints of your campus, being able to push it to their side, push it to their smartphone device can be extremely important. And then again, we circle back and look at all four of those things: the inside, the outside, the remote areas, the on-person devices that they may have. And again, can we provide them information both audibly and visually in case they're in a high noise environment, maybe because of just the ambient noise in that area normally, or maybe because of the ambient noise due to the event that is occurring. Could be that because of the event that's going on, the noise is so loud that they can't hear that audible overhead announcement. So being able to provide audible information and visual information, extremely important. And then the last step is time. And we kind of mentioned this all throughout. Obviously very important in preparation step. But being able to, when you have an emergency situation and you determine, yes, we need to activate this emergency action plan, being able to launch that plan and being able to utilize all of those different communications means that you have in your tool belt, and being able to launch that information in seconds. Everything that we show at the bottom of the screen, mobile alerts, intercom, visual alerts, LED signs, screen pops, overhead paging. We can send notifications to all of those devices literally in less than a second. I mean, it's extremely rapid the way we can deliver that information. And again, it's important that we're not burning up time when those people can be reacting. Those people can be moving to the storm shelter. Those people can be going into their lockdown state. Those people can be moving away from the situation if necessary. Give them as much time as possible to be able to save themselves. And also be able to change that message as the situation develops, because something that I told them 3 minutes ago may be the exact opposite of what I need them to do right now, just because the situation changed during the event. So being able to send out that information rapidly, being able to update the information as rapidly as possible, extremely important. And really that final stage, are we doing this instantly, and being able to send that information out. And that is those 4 steps: preparation, delivery, reach, and time, are really what we do with our ELaunch platform. And ELaunch is a piece of software that I'm going to show you now. And ELaunch allows us to really integrate different systems together and to be able to give you that speed and be able to give you that capability of delivering clear information in a time of need. So I'm going to escape out of this PowerPoint presentation and jump over to a software presentation. This is actually a what we call application server that we're looking at. This server is really the heart of any mass notification system, and this server is the piece that it allows you to very easily store audio. You can upload audio files to this. You can create text-to-speech audio, so I can just type in text and the system will speak that text out. And we'll get back into that a little bit later. It's got some very unique capabilities. We could come off the hook on our phone system and dial a code and actually record audio directly to this server. So if I wanted to record live voice announcements for playback, I could record them directly onto the hard drive, and then that audio would be sitting here available to me. It also allows you to enter text information that can be broadcast out to any of those visual devices, like the screen pops on computers, or the smartphone app, or those LED displays that we were talking about. So I can enter text information in here and broadcast that out to any of those visual devices. It also allows me to do other things like pull up URLs. So I can pull URLs maybe from your IP camera system. When an event occurs, if somebody presses an emergency button, I could pull up the camera in that area so I can immediately see what's going on. We can interface with other systems like access control systems. We can have mechanical controls that go back and forth between other systems to signal them to do something. So maybe during a severe weather event, if you had a tornado, for example, or a severe thunderstorm, you may want to provide a signal to your access control system to open everything. Just allow free ingress and egress of the property so that if people are outside and they're in harm's way, they can get back in the building through any door. Flip that around. If we have an active shooter event, we may want to signal your access control system to lock everything down, to release interior fire doors within the building, to compartmentalize the school and limit lines of sight. So integrations like that can also be built into the what we call playlists in the application server. And a playlist is just what it sounds like. It's, okay, I want to play this audio file and send this text message and provide this mechanical control to the access control system. You build these playlists up, and then the application server has many different triggers that allow you to trigger those playlists. There's one very simple trigger is just a calendar-based scheduler. So this may be not emergency communications, but just day-to-day communications. This could be a bell schedule or a shift change schedule, or maybe I'm controlling the messaging in a transportation facility or a healthcare facility. No parking in the red zone. Do not leave your baggage unattended. Visiting hours are over at 8 p.m. Those sort of things can be easily scheduled in our calendar-based schedule, which just works on time of day and day of year. We also have the ability to trigger playlists based on an input. So an input can be a contact closure, a closure from another system, or even a button or a switch on the wall that you go over and push the button, and when you push the button, it initiates your lockdown, or another button initiates your evacuation. So you could have a bank of buttons in your security office, or where you hit these buttons and it initiates the entire playlist. From other equipment, one thing that we interface these inputs with quite often are fire alarm systems. So if you have fire panels that are spread out, a lot of customers will have different types of fire panels and different facilities that don't really communicate with each other. Well, if you had an alarm condition, the fire alarm can simply give us a contact closure, and then we can notify you. We can send out a overhead announcement that the fire alarm has been activated in this particular facility. We can do the same thing with day-to-day type fire alarm functions. So maybe you just have a supervisory condition or a trouble condition, and maybe if you provide us information on that, a closure on that, we could send that information, but just target the people that need the information. Just send that to the maintenance department, not send it to the entire facility. So lots of capabilities to integrate just contact closures and to trigger events, just a mechanical control. We can also launch playlists based on a dial code. So you could have this integrated with your phone system, and you could come off hook on your phone system and dial a code to launch your evacuation or your lockdown just right through the devices that you currently have. We've even had customers build speed dial buttons for these things, only on maybe the security personnel or the top administration's phones, the people that should be able to launch those messages, but make it easy to be able to launch those messages in that emergency situation. We can also launch playlists from an icon, which I'm going to show you on that graphic that I built. I can just click an icon and launch a message. We can also launch a playlist based on a data feed from another piece of equipment. And this is an interesting one because this allows us to interface with virtually any IP system that you may have. This allows us to interface with IP phone systems. This allows us to interface with IP camera systems. This allows us to interface in a more elegant way with fire alarm systems. So if you have a system that can provide us a data feed, we can interface with that data feed, and we can launch a playlist. I'm gonna show you a demo of that when we get back to the graphic also, but that's a very capable feature that we have, being able to interface with so many different types of systems in such an easy way. We've interfaced with IP camera systems, for example, and if the IP camera detects motion, then we see that data from the IP camera, and we can launch a playlist. And, we can launch a playlist maybe to the overhead speakers in the area of that camera saying the facility is closed, you're trespassing, authorities have been notified, please vacate the premises immediately. And then simultaneously, we could send another message over the two-way radios of security personnel saying that, hey, we've got motion detected in this secure area. So integrations like that, again, not necessarily things that you would think about integrating together, but having your IP camera system being able to automatically interface with your two-way radio system, a real capable device or real capable feature that we have. We've also interfaced with even IP thermostats. We had a customer who had coolers, and one of their coolers went over temperature, and this was a large school actually. When they got there on Monday morning, all the food was over temperature, and they had 4,500 students that they didn't have any food they could serve them. So it was a really big deal. And with IP thermostats, they were able to just send a feed over to this application server, and we're able to notify them if anything starts getting close to being over temperature. So very capable function is that monitoring. We can also monitor what are called CAP sources, and CAP is Common Alerting Protocol. And Common Alerting Protocol is a protocol that was set up by the federal government for broadcasting emergency messages over the internet. This is what all the national services use, National Weather Service, Department of Homeland Security, NOAA, FEMA, all those sources post CAP messages, and we can read those CAP messages. As we mentioned before, if you have that banner that comes across the top of your TV when there's a severe weather event, that banner is a CAP receiver at the TV station. There's nothing that the people at the TV station are doing. There's just a CAP receiver there that is reading that message, taking the text out of that message and scrolling it across the top of the screen. We do the same thing with this server. We're able to monitor those CAP messages. So if you had a severe weather event, we would be able to immediately notify you. You don't have to be in front of the TV or listening to weather radio. We can send you that information, and we don't have to send it to the entire facility. We can just target that information to the specific people who need to see that information. So again, the CAP monitoring is another very capable source that we have, and we're going to take a look at that. Right?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Got a quick question on our mobile application. Can you go over that just a little bit? Is that just restricted to the U.S., or can our mobile enunciation be reached out across the world, across the nation? What's our limitations on our mobile app and being able to communicate and trigger to others?
The mobile app actually can be worldwide. That is a service that is actually a hosted service by Valcom. We have it up in our cloud server, and it allows us to broadcast worldwide. Matter of fact, we have customers, some large industrial customers, who have executives that are traveling around the world on a constant basis. And it allows you to be able to not only broadcast information to those people, but it also allows us to track them and see where those people are, if allowed. So if, for example, one of our customers is a large bank, and if there's an incident that is going on in Paris, they can open up a Google Earth image of the Earth. They can go to Paris and put a geofence around Paris and know exactly what employees are in that geofence. They can then send information to those employees, and those employees can also respond back to those messages. So great question, and a very, very capable device. Let's take a look at this graphic. So we had mentioned that we could send out, we could trigger a playlist based on a feed from the National Weather Service. I'm going to launch a tornado playlist just by clicking this icon on this graphic that I built for this particular customer. This customer is a K-12 school district in Minnesota that has about 40 schools, and each of those facilities is controlled by Valcom, and they've really done a lot of integrations there. I'm just going to launch this. These icons on the side here are set up to go to all of their facilities. So by clicking one of these icons, I would send this emergency announcement to every single school in their district. I'm just going to click this so you can kind of hear and see what I mean by an emergency playlist being activated.
This is a test tornado alert. A tornado warning has been issued for our area. Students and staff, please re-enter campus buildings, return to classrooms, or the nearest inside shelter location. Close doors and windows. Move to furthest interior areas away from doors and windows. Take attendance. Remain indoors until further instructions are provided or an all-clear message is delivered. This has been a test.
Okay, so what you heard was actually our text-to-speech engine speaking that out. That was just text that we took directly out of their emergency action plan. So that would have been text that someone would have gone over to a microphone and read over their paging system. The way the school district was originally set up, they had to do a phone tree from the district office, call around to all the different schools, and then each school would go and they would read that paragraph over the paging system to let people know. It took a very long period of time for that to occur. So we were able to automate that under that single button click and make it very, very rapid delivery. So when the district office decided we need to put this, the district into whatever state, we're able to launch that information very rapidly. You'll notice there's a screen pop. This is our screen pop software for Windows machines that popped up and then seized control of my screen, forced that information up, and then I had to acknowledge that screen pop before I could move on. We also, in the background, pulled up the weather radar for that area. This is something that we'll typically do when monitoring CAT messages because, if we detect that the National Weather Service has posted a tornado weather alert or a severe weather warning for your area, you don't want to have to go to the National Weather Service and search for your area and then find the weather radar. We can just pull up that information automatically. We force it on you, force the information to you at the time you need it. You may have events that don't affect the entire district or don't affect all of your facilities. And in that case, we can, let's say that this was a severe weather event, but it was only going to affect this area of the county. I can go in and just select those individual facilities that I want to target and then send a message just to them. So I'm just going to grab those and then I'm just going to send out a simple coronavirus message just to those.
Keep your friends and family safe by social distancing. Keep 6 feet away from others. And wear your mask at all times.
Okay, again, that was just a simple text-to-speech message that I put in. You notice that message was a little bit quieter than the previous emergency announcement because it wasn't an emergency. That would be the normal level that we would send broadcast out at. But then those emergency announcements, we can send them out at a higher level. So very easy to be able to target the entire district, send a message to 40 different schools simultaneously within seconds. Just click the button, click the icon and go, or push the button on the wall and it happens. Or maybe it even happens automatically based on one of those other sources that we talked about. I can also burrow down. I can get into an individual school. So this is a graphic that we set up for a specific school, and any of the icons on this page would only go to this one facility. So if I'm managing an emergency situation at a specific facility, now I've got a graphic that I can go to, again, to very rapidly launch emergency events, but also that can provide me information in those emergency situations. So I'm going to do kind of a 3-part demonstration here. and we're going to go through an active shooter drill. We're going to go through a lockdown scenario for this school. So first thing I'm going to do, we determined that there is someone on campus. We need to put everyone into lockdown. I can go to the button on the wall and press the button. I can come off, look on the phone, and dial a code to launch this. But we're going to launch it from this graphic.
This is a test lockdown alert for Anoka High School. Students and staff are campuses currently on lockdown. Immediately re-enter campus buildings and return to classrooms. Close and lock doors. Close all windows and pull shades. Take a silent attendance. Confirm your room's lockdown status with the office. Remain indoors until further instructions are provided or an all clear message is delivered. This has been a test.
All right, that was the emergency playlist. Now, let's flip that around and let's watch what that looked like from the classroom side.
So to answer your question, the product functional test.
A lockdown has been initiated. Lock doors, cover windows, and have everyone sit against the inside wall. Keep quiet and do not move around the room. A lockdown has been initiated. Lock doors, cover windows, and have everyone sit against the inside wall. Keep quiet and do not move around the room.
All right, so you notice that display that was on the wall, it started off as a clock. This is what we call our all-in-one unit. It's a clock. It has built-in speakers, a built-in microphone, built-in call button inputs, so I can initiate things from the classroom, built-in flashers. So this is kind of a one single unit that is an IP unit. It's a single power over Ethernet drop to get all those things. But it satisfies all the ADA concerns and all the OSHA concerns that customers could have by providing both audible and visual information. You'll notice that in that emergency message, it said lockdown, lock doors, cover windows, shelter children against the inside wall. And then it said confirm your room's lockdown status with the office. And this is another thing that we can do. This graphic that we're looking at that shows the floor plan of the school has these icons in each classroom. And notice that most of the icons are green right now. Well, in a typical situation, when we would open up this map, these would all be red. But as teachers press their lockdown confirmation button, which is an option we have in the room, we can have that information graphically in real time report back to you at the administrative level. So you can actually watch a facility go into lockdown. So as teachers press their emergency as they press their lockdown confirmation buttons, these icons all transition from red to green. But you'll notice we have one icon right here that is still red. That teacher did not press their lockdown confirmation button. So that's where I want to focus my attention in this emergency. I want to focus on this room that did not get locked down. I can call into that room and maybe I just listen. Just listen to hear what's going on. Or maybe I say, hey, do a hands-free conversation with them and say, hey, we noticed you didn't go into lockdown. Do you need assistance? And the teacher may say, oh, I just forgot to press my lockdown confirmation button. I've got a lockdown confirmation button here on my desk. I'm going to press it now.
Your lockdown has been confirmed. If you need any emergency assistance, press your emergency help button.
And you can see that transition from red to green. And now I got that real-time view that the entire facility is in lockdown. There's also other integrations we can do. We mentioned that we can take data feeds from other systems, and I said that we could integrate with IP telephone systems. One thing we do quite often is to integrate with IP phone systems to look for certain digits to be dialed, and in particular the digits 911. So with this system, we can do 911 call monitoring. We don't touch the 911 call. That goes out and rings to the PSAP just like normal, but we can notify you immediately. While that call's still ringing at the 911 call center, we can notify you locally that that call has occurred. So I've got a demonstration of that. This is our administrative area in this particular school. And I'm going to come off hook on a phone, and I'm going to dial the digits 911.
A 911 call was placed from the admin area. Please respond immediately.
And you see we get a visual notification of that. We also had an audible broadcast, and that could have went out through all the different means we have, over two-way radios, over the overhead paging system, screen pops on computers, whatever you want. We can build that playlist to send that information out and notify people that that 911 call had occurred. And again, we're going to speed the time that it takes to assist that person. We're not going to wait until emergency responders show up at the front door. We know about the call maybe before they did. We can go help that person, or at very least clear the way for emergency responders so we can get them to that person in need as rapidly as possible. I've got one other integration demo here, which this is a integration of like an emergency button being pressed. And this is in a cafeteria at this particular school, but this is a mechanical button on the wall that is emergency assistance. They go over and they can hit this button.
A medical emergency has been reported in the cafeteria.
And that just said, a medical emergency reported in the cafeteria. You heard that broadcast overhead, but I also pulled up the IP camera in the cafeteria automatically. Again, I didn't have to go over to my video management system to do that. We just automatically pulled it up for you. So it's that speed of information. It's all about speed in an emergency. We need to know that there's an emergency situation as quickly as possible so that we can determine whether or not we need to activate our emergency action plan. We need to be able to activate that emergency action plan as quickly as possible with as much automation as possible, and we need to be able to do that through multiple means. I need to be able to activate this through a computer graphic, through a dial code on a phone, maybe through a button on the wall, maybe through all these different things, so that no matter what the situation that we're in, I can get that information to the people under my care. And then that real-time reporting capability. Once I've delivered that emergency action plan, once I broadcast that information out, get feedback on the situation, be able to know that, okay, yes, I've got everyone moving into the shelter. Everyone is accounted for. My rooms are all locked down. Maybe I just want visual information about what's going on at that scene. But being able to speed all of that, being able to force information to you when you need it so that you can provide the best possible information for people under your care that is really what Valcom does. We work with DataVox extensively in your area. They're an extremely good partner of ours, and they are experts at everything we've talked about, from surveying your sites to looking at your emergency action plans. Kind of the whole package is what DataVox does with Valcom. So at that, I'd like to kind of circle around and answer any questions that you may have. Open the floor up. Anything you'd like to talk about more in depth, specific to your organization, or anything that you'd like me to delve deeper into, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
So Dan, while we're waiting for somebody to chime in or any questions to come in, if I understood you correctly, Valcom does not require rip and replace for most systems. It's about getting, if I understood you correctly, it's like getting a vision of what we want to do and then start trying to tackle what existing infrastructure the client has in place and start working through it that way? Or what's the best way to start a project or starting dialogue with DataVox?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's all about, and you might want to mute there we go. It's all about just that. You know, every customer we have has emergency communications needs, but not everybody has the budget to just install a whole new Valcom IP system. So it's very important that we be able to integrate those existing assets, you know, be able to take what you've already invested in and utilize that. That's a big step in this. It's very important that we utilize as much of the existing equipment that you have as possible. So that survey, having them come out, having DataVox come and look at, okay, your paging system, it's viable, it works fine, there's no reason to replace it. Let's just drop in a Valcom IP gateway to be able to seize control of that paging system when we need to. Being able to tie multiple facilities together, as we showed with this district map, being able to tie these 40 different facilities together. These 40 facilities were not all Valcom facilities. These all had, some of them were, probably about a third of them were Valcom systems, but others were other manufacturers. But by dropping in our IP gateways, we were able to seize control of them, and then by using the customer's network infrastructure, tie all of those facilities together, even though they were spread over a very wide geographical area. So that's extremely important, and something that we do. Again, a very unique thing to Valcom is that we want to utilize as much of that existing infrastructure as possible to give you a true congruent mass notification system. Any other questions?
So, Dan, you talk about the IP. Does Valcom offer anything old school analog style? Do I have to go to IP if I'm not comfortable with my network and it's just not there? Can I stay analog? Can I work in that analog field, or is it now going forward it have to be all IP?
That's another great question. So no, we manufacture a full line of analog systems and have since 1977. We also have full IP systems like those gateways that we were talking about, or even IP speakers. There's a lot of benefits to moving to an IP platform as far as management and being able to control that system and having visibility to all the devices on that system so that you know the system is active and functional when you go to make that broadcast. With IP systems, we can have, they can kind of monitor their own health. So we could send you an alert, for example, if there was a device that went offline. So a lot of reasons to move to IP, but we have full analog systems that are absolutely the best in the industry for broadcasting those overhead announcements and are used by many of our different customers. We also have systems that are kind of in between, that kind of span. They're right in between an analog system and a full IP system. We call those hybrid systems, to where, maybe we are just dropping in an IP gateway to seize control of an existing analog system, or maybe we're dropping in a gateway that just utilizes all of the existing analog speakers and call buttons that are out there, but it turns them into individual IP endpoints. So we can use the existing speaker, existing call button, existing wiring, re-terminate it, disconnect it from that old analog system, connect it up to an IP gateway, and now each of those speakers looks like an IP speaker on our system. So there again, utilize that existing infrastructure. There's nothing wrong with the wiring, nothing wrong with the speakers. They all function fine. Then we could take a very old system and upgrade it to a very modern technology and do that in a cost-effective, timely manner with minimal disruption to day-to-day activities. So great question, and yeah, we've kind of got it covered. No matter which way you want to go, we want to put in the correct solution for your facility.
So did I hear you right? You said I can switch out a head in and I can have IP endpoints and analog covered with the same head in, same system, all living on one platform. Did I hear that right?
That is correct. So once you move to an IP platform, you really do away with all of the constraints that we had with an analog platform. Number one, you're infinitely expandable. So if we went into an analog system and we just dropped in that one audio gateway to seize control of it, let's say, and you wanted to expand that system because it was maxed out. There was no additional speakers that you could add to it, but there's another part of the facility that we need to add speakers to, or maybe we're adding a new addition to that facility. Well, we can simply add in IP speakers in that new area, and they can really be part of that existing system. So now I can communicate to all of those devices simultaneously. You know, we just blend them together and make it look like one completely unified system. Another real kind of unique capability that Valcom has to be able to, again, utilize as much of that existing infrastructure as possible. Another thing that's really important when you move to IP systems is the ability to inject that visual part. So as soon as I move to an IP system, now if I had a high noise area of that facility that has those analog speakers in it, you know, I can just drop in an IP strobe. You know, if I have someone working on a machine and they can't hear the overhead page when the machine's turned on, or if it's maybe the band room in a high school, when the band's playing, they can't hear the overhead announcements, I can just drop in a visual display. I can drop in a flasher to get their attention so they stop playing their instruments and they can hear the overhead page. Or I can drop in a scrolling message display and scroll that text across the display so they can read it and they can see what's going on. But with an IP system, there's really no head end anymore. I don't have to put in a whole back end subsystem for those strobes or even for those signs. I just plug in a single IP endpoint where I need it and fill in those gaps, you know, fill in the gaps that you have in your existing system. Hopefully that answered a lot of your questions. We're getting really close to the 1 hour mark. I'd open it up one more time for any more questions, and then I'll turn it back over to Jessica to close us out. No? Okay. I hope that the time today was well spent. If you have any additional questions, please get in touch with DataVox. They know our products inside and out. We are a resource for them. They pull us in quite often to work with customers like yourselves to look at your emergency action plans, to look at the existing infrastructure that you have in place that we may be able to integrate together, and to really try to enhance your emergency communications, provide as much due diligence as possible prior to the emergency situation. You know, let's sit down, let's talk about these situations, let's talk about how we're going to provide information, how we want people to react in different situations, and really provide that life-saving information to the people under your care as rapidly as possible. So thank you for your time today. And Jessica?
That concludes our session for today. Thank you to Dan and Tim for your time and a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.